Hey everybody, Tony D with another hot take. This one's on, what else? The Democratic Party. Jesus. Do the Democrats have anything left to offer at this point? I have to question it. What do they have to offer? What does Biden have to offer? I was driving around doing some errands today and I turned on news radio because I wanted to see if there was any updates on any of the riots, if anything new had happened. We had explosions in Philadelphia, by the way. They blew up ATMs trying to get him out of the wall. One guy blew himself up and killed himself. Whether or not they're Antifa guys or gangsters, kind of hard to tell. All those things have cameras. There's cameras all over the streets of Philadelphia. Man, you guys are screwed. Whoever you are, you're screwed. Anyhow, speaking of screwed, Democrats, that you tried to help peaceful protesters. Look, there are plenty of peaceful protesters in this, but trying to help them and bail them out of jail, it's a bad look. I told it to the Hollywood celebrities. It's an even worse look for you, because you all know what Trump's going to say. He's going to say you bailed out the rioters, and there's going to be plenty of rioters that turned out, that got arrested, that you end up bailing out because there's barely daylight between them. And what I mean by that, it's not that the protesters intend to riot. What happens is you have a peaceful protest, and when it gets out of hand, some of those people who were in the protest, who were gonna maybe riot or maybe not, they get out of hand. Antifa agitated them, they took advantage of the situation, and they rioted, broke into a store, stole some stuff. Your money and the cops, they can't distinguish between the peaceful and the rioters. The only distinguish will be whether or not they get charged with looting or robbing or whatever, right? So I guess you could use the fund you're donating to not to protect anyone who was accused of looting. Thing is, they might not be guilty. So what the hell good is your lawyers and your money if you're not going to protect the innocent? Right? So some of these people may be blamed wrongly. Well, the moment they get blamed, they're screwed, right? Because now they don't get your wonderful money. If in fact you even put up those distinctions. I don't think anyone has. Because the mainstream media is constantly framing the rioters as protesters. They're constantly trying to soft pedal like, well, this happens. No, it doesn't. There were peaceful protests against the war back in the 2000s. There have been peaceful protests about a lot of different things. Doesn't normally turn into a full-blown national riot. This time it did. And it looks like most of the blame lies at Antifa's feet. There's also local knuckleheads. I mean, let's be honest. There's local knuckleheads. They're opportunists, again, criminals, who just wait for something to happen. On a normal day, they won't do anything. On a normal day, they don't do that, but they see a car unlocked or a building unlocked, or, there's a commotion, somebody falls down and drops their wallet or something. That's when they strike. That's why you have to guard your possessions and keep alert, because these guys will steal whenever they can. Only when it's easy. Only when it's easy. That's at the heart of criminality. It's about cutting corners, about being easy. This time, it's a mess. And you've dipped your toe into it like these celebrities, and it's going to come back to haunt you. Because no one, and I mean no one, other than the most hardcore Democrat supporter, is going to vote for anyone who supposedly supported one of the looters. You can't soft pedal your way out of this. Maybe you could have if it was just isolated, say, in Minneapolis. Maybe. If it hadn't gotten too out of hand and the Minneapolis PD had managed to quell things before it got too bad, and then maybe the National Guard comes in. If it hadn't gone beyond that, maybe. Now, Philadelphia is a wreck. New York is a wreck. Cuomo is apparently threatening to take de Blasio out of office and take over, which would be incredible. I mean, it would just be incredible. De Blasio's done anyway as a politician. I mean, talk about a guy who's never, ever going to be elected to anything ever again. But he still thinks that he doesn't need the National Guard. Oh, yeah. The police are so overwhelmed, they're telling people they got to take care of themselves. That doesn't surprise me. As a libertarian, we talk about the cops all the time and how they have too much power. There was one particular case in which an actual, I think he was a serial killer or a murderer, a guy with a record, had attacked this guy on a subway, and that he was fighting for his life against a guy with a knife. There were two other cops in the next subway car. They refused to help him. He managed to overcome this guy, and eventually the cops came in, and he was like outraged and said, "Why didn't you help me?" And I think he got stabbed too. And the cops said, "Well, we're not obligated to. Like, we were protecting ourselves." That's their default, And to some extent, not in that case, I don't think, but to some extent, it's justified because obviously they have to protect the police station and the courthouses and the government, or else there is nothing left to protect, right? But they don't have a strategy for this yet. But they will. They'll figure it out. They always do. And my strategy would be simple. They would go, and this is probably what's going to happen. They're going to go block by block and retake it. That's the easiest way, right? They're going to go block by block, drive out the protesters, arrest people, go to the next block, go to the next block, go to the next block, and they're going to continue, and then they're going to continue to keep people out of the places they took back. Now, they don't have enough people to do that with the cops. But once the National Guard gets in and the Army gets in, oh yeah, that's exactly the plan. And you guys won't have any place to hide. I mean, I guess you could run back to the suburbs or throw your bandanas and hoodies away and pretend like you're an innocent bystander. But in the end, they're going to catch up to you because, all the cameras. But the Democrats are going to take the brunt of this, all right? What is Biden going to say? What is he going to say? How's he going to pass gun control? I mean, Biden's a big gun control guy. Sales are like going through the roof of guns. Like they're up like 40%. Some 6 million people. Most of them all new gun owners. Everybody's buying a gun. The argument for gun control is officially dead. If anything, they're going to roll back some of the gun control we have. In the next few years after, the red tidal wave that I'm predicting. I'm predicting it, by the way. I'm saying it now. It's going to be like the UK, only much worse for the Democrats. They'll be lucky to have any seats left at all, I think. They're just going to get wiped out. I mean, I can't see Phil Murphy being reelected. Van Drew, one of the Democrats here, already switched parties. I can't see how anyone connected to the Democratic Party, Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, any of these people, what are you going to do? How are you going to justify this? You can't. What Biden should have done is immediately come out against the violence. Immediately. He should have said, I support the peaceful protesters, but it's an outrage that these people are rioting. Something like that. He should have made a clear distinction. Instead, he has his own staff members trying to bail these guys out of jail. It's not a good look, Joe. It's a terrible look, okay? And the fact that the media is filling people's brains with this idea that, the riots are kind of justified. Oh, no. You're just making more Republicans every day. I really do think part of the problem is the people on the left side of politics still believe the media, even though they kind of know they're lying to them. I mean, it's the only explanation I could think of, unless these people are willfully we got to hang on, And I think every sort of capable person has sort of flipped sides anyway by now. The guys they're left with are the guys who are just, I don't know, they just can't see themselves as turning into Republicans. I mean, it's sad, really. you guys are like in a burning building and you just keep pouring gasoline down the side saying, why doesn't the fire go out? um, God, that dog. You need to just take a knee at this point. I mean, take a knee. I still continue to believe H.A. Goodman's prediction of Hillary Clinton running. I mean, I think it sounds way more realistic than Joe Biden becoming president, because at least Hillary can look past all this stuff and say, well, of course I would have handled it this way, and this way. She'll have the benefit of being able to look back, because she's not going to be crowned until August anyway, right? So she's got months to think of all her responses to the virus, to the looting, and whatever the hell else happens in the next couple of months. Jesus, could there be anything else at this point? Meanwhile, you've got, I was listening to the radio. I started this story. I got distracted. Listening to the radio, and they talked to Biden about Biden like he's the president in exile. He's not. He's not even close. I mean, they never talked about, like, say, Mitt Romney this way when he was running for re-election at Obama. The only time they would go to him is when he said something stupid in response to something. It's just amazing to me how the liberal media, the term the liberal media, it was just this joke. It was just this joke back in the 80s. There's no real liberal media. Come on. Stop saying that crazy stuff. And really, now it's sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, really. The Simpsons one time had this great episode back when they weren't woke, where Krusty, he runs for senator, and he runs as a Republican, and he goes on Fox News, and they treat him like great, but then his Democratic rival, they treat him like Satan, and it's hilarious. It's a hilarious segment. But, it's sad that the guys who do The Simpsons, I don't think they would ever do the opposite, which would be totally true too, right? A Republican running against a Democrat, where, the Republican going on, say, The View or any of one of the other many, many liberal channels would just get treated like crap, while the Democrat would just be elevated and elevated and elevated. It's a funny bit. It's a shame that their comedic sensibilities won't extend beyond their political, things right now. I've often struggled with that too. It's hard. It's hard to make fun of your own guys. It's hard sometimes for me to make fun of the libertarians because, I want them to succeed. But I still managed to do it. I made fun of Ron Paul a little bit back in the day, and a few other sort of libertarian things. Now, of course, the libertarians are, they're kind of, we're sort of way in the background right now. We have a presidential nominee. For those of you who are totally disgusted by the Democrats but can't bring yourself to vote for Trump, please check her out. That's Jo Jorgensen, I think is her name. That's how her name's pronounced. She's run before, and she has a libertarian platform, so you might want to check it out. As far as the Democrats go, I mean, it really needs a whole new teardown. I think it's the only way. I think the entire Democratic Party should be and will be destroyed this next election. I think there will be very few Democrats left. Maybe in local government, but not on a national scale. My God. After all this, and how are you going to spin this as Trump's fault? I just don't see it happening. It wasn't his fault about the virus. It wasn't his fault. He called China. Wow, what a call that was, right? I mean, you didn't exactly have to be Nostradamus to call China, but man, I had no idea. And now China, probably one of the most racist countries in the world right now, with regards to people who are African American. They are calling out the United States for their racism, if you can imagine. These are people who put the Uyghurs into essentially death camps and work them to death and actually use rape as a form of torture. That's the Chinese government, ladies and gentlemen. They're calling us racist. And, you know, some people in this country, unfortunately, are stupid enough to believe the Chinese government. They were stupid enough to believe the WHO that was listening to the Chinese government. And they're still stupid enough to think, well, you know, the Chinese government, they're pretty good. No. No, Joe. No, Democrats. No. This is the end of the Democratic Party, I'm afraid. But, you know, that's healthy, right? Democrats disappear, and some other party will erupt in its place. Hopefully something sensible, something that makes sense. Hopefully the libertarians will move in. Maybe you could give us a try.